Hi, and welcome to HR Talks with HM Pinnacle, where bad days are unbelievable stories for HR. So, you think you've had a bad week? Just wait. We're talking about real workplace challenges, real people ops chaos, and the situations that no one ever puts into the handbook. I'm Heather, founder and CEO of HM Pinnacle Consulting. And for more than 20 years in doing people operations, I think I've seen everything there is to see. And yet, people continue to surprise me. And I'm joined by my co host, Cara. She's part of our HMP team, and she spends her days helping our leaders work through the complicated, messy, and sometimes unbelievable situations that occur. And we're excited to talk to you about some of those situations now. So let's get started. It's good to see you, Cara. How was your day?
It's good to see you. And I am thrilled about this conversation because we're getting into remote work environments. And I don't know if, as you were introducing me, my dog, Gus Bus, definitely let out a little whine for me to pet him. And I think that is just the reality of remote working. So I'm excited to chat with you about this today.
It is, and I pride myself on having a good work environment, even though it is at home. And yet, like right now, you can't control the outside environment. Somebody's paving a road behind us, and so as soon as the construction workers show up, my dogs are freaking out and have to go out and introduce themselves in the backyard, and those kinds of moments just happen lately. And I'm like, oh my goodness! And I'm getting really quick at being able to hit mute on a meeting,
Yes.
like mute,
Yes.
mute, mute. I'm like, I got my mouse hovering over constantly while I'm listening, just in case. But I think that there's good and bad to remote working. And I will start with the bad. So I love having stories where people are like, this could never have really happened. And they're like, this has to
Mhm.
be made up. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. That's why I could write a book. After 20 years, you got a lot of them, right? But this one happened more recently post COVID
Okay.
when everybody was working remote, right? And then they started to trickle in. And so I want to say maybe it was like the second year of COVID, probably with the second year of COVID. So
Okay.
we were doing an interview, and it was an organization that was looking to hire HMP on. And so I was meeting with all of the executive team and part of the board, and it was 100%, Zoom meeting kind of thing, not in person, to meet with them and talk about what we could potentially do, that kind of stuff. So the executive director of this organization, she was sitting in her office, and um, I am not a big one for blurring my background.
Okay.
I either have a good background or I'll put on a filter background, like what you have right now for the HM Pinnacle background. But blurring the background, I think, is very distracting for a couple of
Oh,
reasons.
interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
one, because when things pop in and out, they show up in the picture, right? So a blurred background doesn't blur it forever. Like if something enters into the space that the camera's in, you can see that, right? So it's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things where I'm like, it becomes distracting. But anyway, so I usually make sure my background looks pretty good, and then I can just always leave my office the way it is. But in this case, the executive director had her background blurred.
Okay.
And so who knows what's behind her or that kind of thing. But we were all meeting, and a couple others had blurred backgrounds. Some had, set up their own filtered background, and some had their regular backgrounds. But there were about six of us on the call, and we were talking, and all of a sudden, her husband walks in to give her a cup of coffee, but he's in nothing but boxer shorts. So I don't know. Everyone realizes, no joke, like, and I'm trying to keep a straight face because I was talking when this happened. But this is that part of that blurred background, and why I mentioned this is that because he stepped into that area of camera, and think of he's standing here. Think of what part of his body, like, so this is why I know he was in boxer
Oh
shorts and nothing else,
no.
right? As he's handing her a cup of coffee, I don't think she even realizes that he's now in the image or the picture. And I was like, and I'm trying to maintain myself, maintain, Heather, maintain, right? And not say
Oh my
something
God.
about it. No one else said anything on the call. And I was like, does he always do this? Like, is this something they know is normal
I
in the
know.
organization? Or are they just all in such shock they didn't know what to do? But I didn't even have a clue on how to handle that situation. All I could think about in my brain
Yeah.
was the HR side going, oh my God, could you imagine if she was having a conversation with one of her employees and her husband walked in
Oh,
boxer shorts to hand her a cup of coffee? Like, there's harassment written all over that without even
oh
realizing.
my goodness.
It was the wildest thing I've ever seen in a remote work environment. I was like, how,
Oh
what,
my,
you couldn't throw a shirt on or a pair of pants? Like, what the
that
hell?
is the thing. Like, I think that is so dangerous because we never know. Like, okay, is their camera on? Is their camera off? Like, it's hard to tell. And Heather, you saw this yesterday. My husband came and gave me lunch yesterday. I don't know how much you
Yeah.
saw of his arm or what, but I mean, I think there's that one famous video of when COVID just happened. It was a guy doing some sort of like newscast, and then like his kids like run in behind him, and you see the nanny like racing to grab the kids, pick them up, get out the door, and it is horrifying. However, okay, and I'm gonna just say this now. I am biased. Since I am an introvert, I love working from home. I
Have you
love
always
remote
worked?
work.
Have you always worked from home, or have you ever been into? Okay,
No, I before actually the only time I started working from home was because of COVID.
okay,
And I got to, for me, it was a financial boon because saving money on gas, wear and tear on the car. I was one of those that was inclined to eat out with my
mm,
coworkers because
yep,
I was in a
totally.
downtown location. And my efficiency, I felt like very much so increased, but it's because I like doing. I am a doer. I like to do projects and the behind the scenes work. Whereas when I was in the office, it was a lot more the conversational parts where with HR, I'm like, that's very beneficial on some levels to
Yeah.
understand the context and have the meetings and like know folks. So I'm a little bit biased, where I just like love working. And I'm trying to remember my train of thought of even like how this like came to pass of where this came in. But with the remote work, I love the fact that you hear the dog, you see the boxers, which is weird. I never thought I'd say that on an
Yeah, I'm
HR
not sure how.
call.
Yeah.
But
See, and
but what I mean by that is it makes you human. I used to be so scared of a title. And then the next thing you know, they're human just like us. My boss was taking her calls out of her daughter's bedroom. And I'm like, it's cool to see that you're also a human and that there is chaos and we all put our pants on the same way, you know?
or you don't put them on and then you show up in a
Oh,
video, one of the two. But so I think I take it a little differently, and it may just be a difference in our generation too. Your most of
hmm
your work environment has been um right before or right during or right after COVID, right? So for you, it's much more norm to have this remote concept to where me, most of my career has been pre-COVID. And so
hmm
I have a lot more of the in office where if you were able to work on a Friday from home, you had to have like a sick kid or something. Like it just didn't happen
Yes.
prior to, right?
Yeah.
So there is a balance between the two. But I struggle with the lack of professionalism that happens in
Yes.
environments from a remote setting. Like you said, like the sound of the dogs, etc. It happens. It does. But if that's
hmm
just your norm and you take it like, well, that's just how it works. Like I don't have an actual office space. I just work from my kid's bedroom, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. I struggle with that being a successful work environment. And why I say that is because for me, my work consists of actual physical paper as well as
Love that.
computers
hmm
and everything else. And most people's do. And sitting in your kid's bed while you're taking all of your meetings and doing all your work doesn't seem like it is really setting you up for success in being able to manage yourself in a professional way. I think sometimes it makes us a little less professional because we're a little more laid back kind of concept.
True.
I'm a big believer that I still dress up for work. I work
Mm,
100% remote, just like you, but I make sure that I'm presentable. One, because you never know when you have to take a camera meeting, but two, because it makes me, when I put on my work clothes, I feel more like I'm in a work zone and a work environment,
yes.
as opposed to if I'm just
Yes.
putting out my sweats or my workout clothes, right? I feel a little less professional in that.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So I think
There's
it makes a
truth in
difference.
that. It truly does. And actually, okay, I feel like we can absolutely get into the pros and cons here because I agree with that 100%. And I also think the season of life may also kind of alter
I think
your
so too.
preference. So when I was living alone, single, I loved the office environment because that was my community. Those were my friends. I loved engaging in that way. Then when I was just me and my husband, I loved working from home. I was more efficient. I was focused. Me and him had our time, really great quality time together, but also our time when we were working. Now I have kids, and I think sometimes the
You
office
wish it was
environment sounds a little bit appealing. Like I love the idea of being able to be home. If there is a sick kid, I can still kind of like be be with them. But I like to either be all in or all out sometimes, and that I think is one of the biggest detractors of a remote work environment is the accountability and to your point the professionalism. We made tips at the previous job I was in when we first moved to the fully remote workforce. And one of them was you now no longer have a commute. And for us as human beings, it is helpful to have a physical transition, whether that be I'm going to shower and dress up and look professional today. And then at the end of the day, take it off, like put on your sweatpants, put on like something cozy, have some sort of physical transition to help your brain signal I am at work and
Yeah.
I am at home. But now when it's all blended, it's difficult. And here are my kind of my horror stories aren't, I wouldn't call them horror stories. These are more just um, unusual situations. But yes, there was a colleague of ours that she was like laying on her bed. And when I say laying, like imagine like similar to like polar bear rug, hand on your side, like side laying.
No,
And, it was just it was a little bit odd. It was a little strange to see. And that was actually an HR conversation of like, this doesn't feel great. Then you have folks who are, as I've seen, maybe sometimes working two jobs. You're paying them for a full-time 40-hour work week and they're not responding or what's going on or there's expectations that aren't being met. Now there are like moonlighting clauses and things like embrace that grind, but there's also a appropriate and responsible and accountable way to do it. And that has happened in some scenarios. And then third, those folks who, hey, if you can take a call from a beach, like cool, but also what's kind of the message being sent to the other attendees on the call? What's the expectation and kind of the vibe that your leaders are getting? If I'm sitting there at the beach, there's someone, next to me laying out in a bikini too, like that could be distracting.
yeah. I
So
think what you guys did is very important. I think many organizations miss it. And honestly, I think we may have
mhm,
too. But, well, I guess not because I think so. HMP is 100% remote and we're all
mhm,
over the United States, which I embrace and love, love, love that we get to engage people everywhere and have every
mhm,
coast involved in our organization. It it hasn't been like explicitly said. You and I haven't taken the time to say, here's our expectations. But I
mhm.
think our team knows them already. And it may be because
Yeah,
we've said them in little ways, or we've coached them, or they've seen how you and I actually show up for meetings and that kind of stuff. But I think companies need to be very careful and set expectations
mhm,
for that remote work. There needs to be a remote work policy. And it needs to talk
yeah,
about if you are one of those companies that has to have cameras on for all of your meetings, and you need to make sure that you're dressing professional because you're working with clients. You need to make sure that you are on your team so they can see that you're available starting at 8:01 or whatever it is, right? That's
mhm,
important to your organization, so you feel like you're getting that 40 hours of work out of your people. That's
mhm.
important. The other thing to understand is if you don't trust people to be working remotely, don't have them work remotely.
Yeah,
It's one of
yes,
those things where not everyone should be immediately granted that access unless you're a remote company like ours. But not everyone
mhm,
should be granted that access if they're not capable of doing it. And some people don't work well at home. They just don't. They can't
mhm.
focus. They need to be in that structured environment to be able to produce. And if they're at home, and I've had people say that, well, I can't work from home. I do my laundry, I take care of the kids, I clean the house. I find myself being distracted by everything around me, and I don't engage with the work that needs to be done. And I'm like, that's okay. But don't find a remote job because you will not be successful in that if you can't do it. I think those expectations are important. Eh, But
Absolutely.
but I don't know that everyone should work remote. I just don't. I think even
100%.
people want to work remote, if it's really not an environment that's conducive for production, they really shouldn't get that opportunity. And the other thing is to think about there are a lot of manufacturing organizations where remote work is absolutely not an
It's just not
option.
possible.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So, I think there's a great balance between the two. I would say if you were to take um, one piece of advice from a CEO about a remote work, I would say organizations should pay attention to the production of their employees, not
Yes.
the hours being worked, right? Are you getting the results that you need? Are you getting, and not to say, so what did you do for your 5 hours or 8 hours or whatever working remote? Instead, look at the production, look at what's been produced, making sure people's deadlines are being met, clients aren't complaining about not getting a hold of people. Those are the kinds of
Hmm.
things that are important. But having a balance to that is something that I struggle with working remote. I am
I
on
think you do it so
24/7.
well.
Well,
You,
I think
you
you're
are.
really sweet, but you're not watching me at 8 o'clock at night while I'm still in here doing emails and that kind of stuff. I have to do a better job of that. I think of setting some boundaries on work time and non-work time, not only for myself, but also because then I'm pinging you and you're in a different time zone,
Mhm.
or I'm pinging, Beth or something like that, and she's in two different time zones, right? So it's hard if you work remote to continue to operate all the time because the expectation then for your team is that you always have to be on. And that's not a good expectation either.
That's the thing that you did well, and I think you kind of hit on it at the very beginning. Yes, there absolutely should be policies and expectations because communication is great. But I think the most powerful thing, and this is actually kind of a cue, I think, for the maybe high performers in your organization, it's who can take the hint. And what I mean by that is, Heather, you show up and you're on camera. That makes your team feel like, hey, I'm going to show up and be on camera. You dress up whatever we see you. That's the hint of, you know what, I'm going to follow this example and also do it. Similarly, you, I know that you either delay send or you're really kind of cognizant and respectful of when we're off. You try to make sure that we're off. And I don't know if you saw, but I had um, G chatted you something and then I deleted it and then had to delay
I,
send it for the next day.
I saw that. I was like, wonder what she deleted. Anytime someone deletes something, I'm like, ooh, what happened?
You're like, what
Um,
happened?
but
Yeah.
I appreciate that you noticed the hint thing because I previously would have been very, here are my structured regulations for working remote for me
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I was like, and I'm going to give props to John, even though it drives me nuts to do it. And don't tell him. And hopefully he doesn't watch the podcast so he doesn't like gloat for a while. But one of the things that he has taught me is lead by example, not by
Mhm.
instruction.
Yes.
And that's a no duh for most people. Like, of course, but no, it's true. Like just doing what you expect others to do when you put the right team of strong people around you, it immediately snaps. Like people know that that's the expectation without you ever saying it. But that's also bad because then if I'm out here typing emails till
Mhm.
midnight or calling you on your vacation or
Yeah.
asking you to do something, on the weekend, that's also part of that hint of expectation. And then your team starts to
Be
think,
on.
uh-huh,
Mhm.
you have to always be on, you have to answer messages, etc. And that's how you burn people out. So I think remote work burns people out more than in-office work does.
Oh,
So I
yes.
think people need to pay attention to that as well. And I don't know if you've seen that or experienced that, but I think it's so hard because I think your idea was actually really good, Car, where you leave the office, change your clothes kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because what happens is when your home environment and your work environment, especially if you don't have an office like I do, but your home
Mhm.
environment and your work environment are one. So even if
Yes.
you're physically not answering emails, etc., you don't feel like you're ever breaking away from your work environment. And so I think that that's why we burn out faster also. And then we also use the
Absolutely.
time, the commuting time. Like for me, at one point, I commuted 2 hours to and from, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night for a job.
Mhm.
I loved the job, but that 4 hours I now can put back into work. So now instead of a 8 hour day, I now have a 10 or 12 hour day, 5 days a week. And so you just start adding that time back in and then you burn yourself out. So I think we need to be careful of that when you do remote work as well.
Absolutely. Like my husband's really good about it because he actually has two computers. He has his work computer, and when he is done with his last meeting, when it's time to be present, like he will shut off, close that laptop, and again, physical signal of I am now done. And then if any recreation, YouTube video watching, gaming, he'll switch to a personal computer. So there's not even a temptation of it. And I do think there is validity in that because there is something kind of, if you think about work in the past, I'm thinking about my dad. Like he gave me his briefcase, like you had your paper, you had a briefcase,
I
you brought
have one in
whatever
the
could fit in
closet
a
still.
briefcase, right? And if you had to work, someone had to call you on your home phone, and who knows who would have picked up. And then you had to like open your brief, but it was limited. And there was, I think, a little bit more physical boundary. Whereas now, yeah, we are
Yeah,
either constantly on. I think we almost are seeing two polar
I
sides of
agree.
this. Either people are always on and have a hard time shutting off, or people are really enjoying the freedom and believe that there is a capacity to multitask, when in truth, we are not designed to be super
Multitaskers.
multitaskers.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's really hard. And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think,
but
no, go ahead.
sorry, go. Well, the thing I was thinking about too is what you said is not. I'm trying to think of the exact phrase you use, but not necessarily instruction to hold people accountable, because I'll give two examples of how I've seen this kind of flipped. In my personal circle, for a fully remote worker, there was a mandate that every remote worker had to have Teams on while they were working, not necessarily to have a meeting, but to create
The idea
a
that they were there, it was kind of
idea.
their clock in kind of thing.
Yes.
I
And so
see
you
now.
had
I
to
see.
have your camera on while you're working. For me, that would be really awkward because I don't know, I'm mouth breathing, maybe I'm eating my taquito, like who knows what I'm
Yeah.
doing while I'm trying to work. And that made the team not feel empowered. It didn't make them feel this sense of camaraderie that I think the that was the intent. It actually felt very just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it felt very personal, especially if your background doesn't have this nice HMP. Like, then what are you seeing? So there's uncomfortability there. Then for another individual in my close circle, they went from fully remote to now a hybrid environment, and they require you badge in a certain number of days. This individual will just go, just drive by, badge, and then like leave. It's like a more performative badging
Wow.
because they're still doing their work and grinding. And I know that they work really hard, but sometimes it's hard in their schedule because if they have meetings, it can take, like, it cut to your point. The commute sometimes digs into the amount of time they're able to like invest for a global team. So it becomes a performative badge. And she's
Well,
still a very high performer, but it's weird.
but the problem with that concept, and I appreciate you bringing that one up. The problem with that i- is you're not trusting your team. And as a leader, you really need to address that in yourself. That's not them, right?
Mhm.
Because if it was them, you'd have a coaching conversation or remove them. It really is your inability to feel uh, able to trust your team because of something inside yourself. Like you have your own issues there. And so you should really address that because badging to
Yeah.
badge is ridiculous. And it's such a waste because that now has taken hours out of her or his, I don't know who it is, her or
Mhm.
his day commuting to go and badge that they could have
Yeah.
been working. Like
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with that concept of why you control someone's work environment. If you don't trust them, it wouldn't matter if they were in the office or not. They could be flipping through Facebook in the office as much as they could at home, right? So
Mhm.
you have a bigger issue and you need to address that. But the other thing that you mentioned, this one I know we work really hard at HMP, and I want to caution organizations that are 100% remote that engagement for your team's growth is important. And I don't mean
Yes.
work engagement, I mean social engagement. One of the things about being in an office is you walk down the hall and you talk to somebody, you know about what's going on in their lives, you share stories about your kids or common activities, or you're sitting in a room chatting away before a meeting. Those kinds of things existed, and that built an ability to feel like you have a team, people that are
Yeah.
there working with you, and there to support you. When you work 100% remote, it's very easy. I can go an entire day if I didn't purposely try. I could go an entire day and not engage other than a chat with anyone on my team. And chat's great, but that's not how you're going to build relationship,
No.
trust, an ability to have individuals come alongside you in those moments that you need it, problem solving. All of that comes from human interaction. And so we have to be very diligent at making
Yeah.
sure you're creating that in a work environment. So things like our HR check-in, which we're going to turn into a lunch and learn, which I love, um,
Yeah.
having special chat channels for everything from for us, like our prayer channel, because faith is important to us, to our
Mhm.
fun channel where people are posting pictures of baby goats lately. Like,
Goats. Yeah.
right? But it's that combination of how we bring each other together and doing one-on-ones visually, I think are important as opposed to just sending an email or chat, hey, how's it going? Do you need me for anything? I don't think that helps build that relationship. And I think that's important for remote work. One, for our own health and wellness, because I think
Yeah.
we need human interaction, but also from a business perspective, you get less people checked out when they feel like people are checking in on them.
Yes, I love that. And I remember reading in a like the number one indicator of a employee engagement was having a friend. Just having
Mm,
a
mhm.
friend in the workplace. So if you want to keep that person, they need a friend. And I, my goodness, there was a girl named Blair, and she was my person. Like I absolutely adored her, and I loved that job extra because of her. And a little tip that I'm going to steal from hers is this was an in office. She put M&Ms that this was probably so unsanitary. So Patrick, if you're listening and you're thinking about safety, we might have to talk about this later. But we had our filing like drawers at the bottom one. There were no files. She had a giant like Costco family sized bag of M&Ms, and people, all employees would come by and they would just like take their M&Ms. But it was such a good way to build that like camaraderie. Position HR maybe as like a little bit less scary. Like we were a very unserious team, but it helped us like be seen as we can be here for you. You can come and talk to us, and yet we'll also get things done. So just the M&Ms and M's in the hallway was so helpful, and that's a physical kind of thing that was so
Yeah.
treasured that I do miss. I will also say, Heather, again, you lead well in our HR weekly check-in. Now turn lunch and learn. You spend 15 minutes just like talking, and like it's not about work. It's about dahlias. It's about our dogs. It's about our
And she
families.
doesn't mean I talk for 15 minutes,
Oh no, no,
everybody.
no, yeah.
She means that we do social time. We always do. Like, I think the
Yes.
social time is why we did it originally. I mean,
Hmm.
it's great because you and I normally know what projects are going on by the team anyway, because we've interacted with the team so much because we have such a really close connection and communication with our team, which I love. But this is more of a chance to be able to BS, for lack of a better term, about
Yes.
what's going on in people's lives and
SpongeBob.
laugh. I know, but what it does is it endears us to each other. And I
It
think
does.
that's so important. One, because we're created to build relationships. Like we're created to come alongside, support, and love into other people. And
Hmm.
that's including the people we get to work with. And so I don't want to lose that because we're all 100% remote. And maybe if we're lucky once a year, we all get together. And that's maybe because of how hard everyone's schedules are. So I love that we have personal time because I think that's important.
Yes. Share the photo. Share the song. I also like that we share like, just whether it's like a praise or like a nice song in our prayer channel. And you do such a good job about that. And if anyone listening is like me, who's introvert and likes doing the work, my style can be very like, how are you? Okay, good. Let's like jump in. And it's hard. I like how you said it takes an intentional, disciplined approach to sometimes pull yourself back from that. Because again, I'm not walking to a meeting room to prepare for the meeting with whoever it is. I'm jumping from this thing to the next thing. And again, like mentally, I think it can hard to turn off. Okay, that meeting was about leave of absence, and now I'm switching to onboarding. Those are
Yeah.
two very different worlds. And if I am just jumping from meeting to meeting without walking to a meeting room, that can be tough. So, what can we do to make sure that we're still being human and refocusing? You know,
Yeah.
that,
I
yeah.
think depending upon the size of your organization, I love what you said a minute ago, Cara. Um, Part of what we developed in the HR box in that new hire experience is the idea of a buddy or a mentor.
Yes,
Because when you connect with somebody right away, someone you can ask questions to, someone who you can have lunch with, someone so that you don't feel like the new kid in the school, right? I think that's so important. And we have to figure out a way to do that in a remote environment as well, right? So
absolutely.
someone on your team is someone that you have virtual lunch with for the first week, or they send over, some special little gift to welcome them or something to get them to engage and so that they can find one or two people that they really connect with. I think that's
Yeah.
important as well.
Yes. And I think that's kind of perfect way to close out kind of this remote world that we're in. The tips: get creative, find the buddy. I love polls. Who is a dog person? Who is a cat person? Who likes music? Like,
We should
kind of
do a poll.
find, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do one after this. Like,
I
let's
like that
find
idea.
small ways to connect. There was another organization that in their chat, there were categories: cooking, gaming, pets, music, books. Like, you
Outdoors. I remember
create,
that. Yeah.
you create many ERGs, employee resource groups, just, through those channels. So I love that you are closing with that. And also, I'm going to quote a previous COO named Wayne Roberts. He had a leadership value that was fair but not equal. And that was something that you kind of talked to me or talked in this podcast was not everybody is the exact same. Some people need in office, some people need remote. You don't necessarily have to blanket approach it because each person and their style is different. So be fair, but that doesn't mean every single person gets the exact same type
Yeah.
of treatment. So,
Yeah.
with that, this concludes our HR talks with HM Pinnacle. So, just remember if you think you've had a bad day looking at someone's boxers in
Yes.
HR, hey, that was an opportunity to grow. Like maybe we should send that executive director, like, I don't know, some fun
Some
patterns.
wardrobe for her
Yeah.
husband. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, like here's some like rubber duckies or whatever it is. Sorry. Well, thank you for spending time with us. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel at HM Pinnacle Consulting. And you can also find us on Spotify. So we are HR Talks by HM Pinnacle Consulting on Spotify. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Bye.